and welcome to the latest webinar as part of the Innovative Law Practice Techniques series presented by the ABA LP Division's Legal Project Management Committee. Before I turn things over, I'd like to let everyone know that we will be recording this webinar and we'll send out a follow-up email with a link to the video on our Law Practice Division YouTube channel. And to the end of the webinar, we'll hold an open Q&A segment. Please do not hesitate to type your questions into the question box on the GoToWebinar panel at the right side of your screen. With that, I'll hand it over to David to introduce our presenter, Michael Cooper of Molpus Group.
Yes, this is David Roof. I'm chair of the LP Division Legal Project Management Committee, and I'm really excited about our session today. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Michael Cooper. He is in-house counsel for Molpus Timberlands. In that role, he is responsible for the management of legal matters for the company, which includes preparing, reviewing, and monitoring contracts, leases, and insurance. He also oversees company policies and procedures and monitors their commercial transactions. He is also involved in managing risk for the company, and the solution that he's going to talk about today is going to be something that ties in both of those responsibilities that he has for the company, and I think is going to be very interesting for those of us both on the law firm and legal department side on how they have implemented a contract management solution to address some of those issues. So Michael, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thanks for doing this presentation for us.
All right, thank you, David. I appreciate the introduction. I'll go ahead and get started, and as I kind of walk through the slides, we are regulated by the Securities Exchange Commission, so just a little disclaimer page that I'm not trying to say anything today. But as we get started, a little bit of background about Molpus. We are what's called a Timberland Investment Management Organization. Our company has a legacy back to 1905, and we're one of the oldest timber-related companies in the nation. Right now, we're managing around 2.8 million acres spread out over 18 states. And we've been doing the timberland management side of this business for third parties since 1996. We are registered with the Securities Exchange Commission. We have around 111 employees, of which 73 are some type of timber professional or forestry expert. We do have 8 people in our legal team, inclusive of lawyers and paralegals, and we're supported by 19 outside law firms and 2 international law firms. Have a little bit of a timeline here just to give you an idea of things that we have done and been in the mill business. We're out of the mill business, and as you'll note there, the TMO was formed in 1996. As way of background as to why we were looking at contract management software, since I've been with the company since 1999, at that time we were managing 500,000 acres, and that was in 5 states, 5 southern states. Now the 2 million acres we manage is in 18 states spread out over the across the U.S. We're not international. All of our holdings are in the U.S. As far as average number of new requests per day we get, and these are people that are in our operations, and it can be anything from a power line easement request, timber sale, confidentiality agreement. You obviously have litigation that can occur from time to time, land sales. There's about 25 different types of requests we can get on a given day. Back in 2008, we're averaging about 1.2 new requests a day. In 2012, it increased to 4.8, and now we're averaging about 10 new requests a day that are coming into our legal department where somebody's asking for us to do a transaction or complete a contract, things of that nature. And since 1999 to present, we've handled somewhere around 12,500 legal matters. So our company's continuing to grow. The pressure, if you will, or the demand on our legal department has continued to grow as well. Just to give you an idea of where we're located in what we call the timber growing regions of the United States. So you're not going to find us having an office in West Texas, as nothing's wrong with West Texas, but there's just not any timberland there. So the areas that we're located in those 18 states are going to be in areas where there are forests, and forestry is a big part of what's going on there. Now, internally, we had to make the case for doing a contract management software. Now, we were kind of lucky because it came not just from our department, but from some other operational departments. When we have meetings every 2 years where our whole company comes together and problem solves improvement ideas. And one of them that came out of the field was, hey, we'd like to be able to access and see statuses of contracts online somehow, and not just have to call somebody or bother somebody as they're working on matters. And we were also having some similar thoughts on our end. And so we had to ask ourselves some questions, or making the case to our bosses as to why we wanted to start this process. And so for us, we didn't really have a standardized way of storing contract documents and data for the operations team to be able to access it very readily, because we have that on a legal server. It's confidential and private, so we don't give the entire company access to our files for a lot of reasons. One, we don't want people coming in and changing documents. Two, they may not need to have access to certain records. So there was not really an easy way to, in where we were doing things at that time, to get that out without somebody physically calling us. We had not really missed any milestones, dates, or renewals, but there was always that potential when you're having to do things hard copy and rely on Outlook to calendar events. And then we were also having duplication of data entry in multiple systems for contracts throughout the company. So there was some savings of time lost. We also, number two here, like to track our key performance indicators of how we're handling information, how we're handling transactions. And so we were having to do that manually on reporting. So we wanted a system that would help us be able to do our reporting a lot easier for our KPIs. And then really the last question we kind of came up, or resolution, was that email was not a replacement for a contract management system. Excel was not enough for us to do our transactional reporting. We were dedicating a staff member, I think around half her time was dedicated to keeping an Excel spreadsheet up to date on statuses of transactions. And we would send that out company-wide every 2 weeks. And it was an incredible drain on time. It was good to keep everybody up to speed, but at any one time we can have 125 transactions pending, and during the course of a year we'll have in excess of a couple thousand transactions. And so from that standpoint, doing that on Excel was terribly inefficient. And then Word was just not robust enough to give us some of the document version history that we wanted to track. Part of making the case to our bosses, we did go out and find some studies, and here's some examples of some information that you can find out there. And it's hard to quantify, I feel like, in legal sometimes, as to what is the actual dollar impact. I'm an in-house attorney, so to a certain degree I'm an expense item. And so you're trying to track your savings, but I will tell you that I think these numbers underestimate the impact. Our personal experience since we rolled this out in June of last year is it's been a tremendous amount of time savings, and allowed us to dedicate employees to actually doing legal work and working with our outside law firms, as opposed to trying to run around and try to maintain contracts and records. When we went through this process, we evaluated 7 different companies, and these are the ones we evaluated. If you go out and Google workflow management software, you'll find 50 companies. And I will tell you that a lot of this is going to depend on your own unique needs. And that's something that you have to get a handle on as you start the process. Is what are you trying to accomplish? Making your case for it. What are you trying to be able to streamline and to improve? And so we had reached out to some of our friendly competitors, in a sense of there's some companies like Weyerhaeuser, Potlatch, Boise Cascade, Georgia Pacific. I would reach out, how do you manage your records? And then I would reach out to real estate law firms. And through all of that, we came up with a list of 5 names. And then there was 2 others that we had just kind of discovered on our own. So within our legal department, we evaluated these 7 companies and did 7 demos with each one of them, and went through our request items. And from that, we had a series of questions or evaluation factors that we wanted to go through. And we had 11. You might have 4, you might have 20, but on our end, we wanted to see if the workflow management system could support easy and seamless integration with our existing processes. We wanted a system that was going to be easily customizable. And some of this is going to get into cost of software. The more you want to customize, a little more expensive it gets. There are some softwares out there that are very straightforward, and if all you're trying to do is track invoices and one contract in your particular company, like a shipping company or something, then there's some softwares out there that will do those 2 or 3 things. They have it kind of shrink wrapped. and it's a little bit less costly, and you can almost have them implemented within an hour. From our end, with us being a transactional business, we have an incredible amount of customizable information that we want to track on a given property. You know, we're fiduciaries to clients, and so for things that if somebody's wanting to have a timber sale or maybe a power line easement, maybe a road easement, pipeline company, whatever the case may be, we'll track. We already had an intake form that we tracked information, and it was everything from somebody's phone number, their name and their address, to why are you recommending that we do this transaction? Has your boss approved it? And we have a little area we'd have them sign, and then give us data. How many trees are we going to lose here? How many acres are involved? Do we have any current easements on the property? Is there a current timber sale or hunting lease? So there's a variety of things that we wanted to be able to track. So having a customizable software was very important to us. As I kind of go through the different things, number 4 is really important to us. Does it allow a project manager's ability to balance the distribution of tasks within the team? We have a senior paralegal in our department, and as the requests are made, she's able to look out and see how much different attorneys have, you know, on their to-do list or their plates, and what the paralegals have. And so we are able to better assign projects out. So if somebody seems to be pretty overloaded on a number of deals that are going to be closing in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and they're working with our outside counsels on those, then this allows us a little bit better way of balancing our own workflows. Does the system provide for event reminders? In the system, you'll see it in a little bit as we walk through this. You know, event reminders would be the expiration of the contract date, or maybe there's insurance involved with the contract and it has renewal dates. And so we wanted to have the ability for the system to send out alerts or reminders to the relevant people that, hey, it's 30 days out from your contract expiring. You know, if you don't do anything, then we're not going to do anything. But if you need us to renew it, or if there's something, you know, steps that need to be taken, please contact us. Number 6 was real important as well. We wanted the ability to have a request module. Some systems you see out there are really built just for in-house lawyers or law firms, and it's not really made to interface with an outside group. So there might be a system where you have, and it helps you as your law firm track your information, track what you're doing as a firm, but it doesn't really have an intake form for a client. In our case, our employees who are in these different offices and we call them field offices, but they're out near these properties, we view them kind of like a law firm with a client. They have a request, and so instead of us having these hard, you know, intake forms scanned and emailed to us, we were getting a barrage of emails, and it was hard to kind of keep up with the request. And even worse, you would have them, even though you tell them this is the gatekeepers that you have to send these requests to, somehow they would still end up through a back door going to somebody else, and it was getting harder and harder to keep up with that, especially when you're averaging about 10 new requests a day. So we wanted to have the ability for a request module that somebody could be on an iPad, an iPhone, whatever the device, and be able to say, okay, I want to send you a confidentiality agreement. And here is, you know, and there's a drop-down menu that if it's an existing party we've dealt with, they can select them, and everything auto-populates for them. And then it just goes through questions like, is this a mutual confidentiality agreement, or is this a or is this just for our end? And it goes through asking questions, and so then they can submit the request to us. And that was something we want to do. They can even have a draft request, so they start working on a project, hit save, and then it can come back and submit later. Now, so number 6 kind of eliminated some really nice softwares for us because they did not have the ability to have a request module. We wanted to have the ability to do electronic signatures within our system, and we also wanted to be able to more streamline our template utilizations. Our firm is, I kind of call it a firm, we're a law firm that just so happens to be sharing office space with a company in a sense, but no different than a law firm. If you have 2 different real estate lawyers, you know, and they do purchase agreements for the same type of activity, does your client see a different form depending on which lawyer they work with? You know, more than likely, yes, you know, because everybody has a little different way of doing things. But it's a little weird for us in a sense, because if somebody is making a request to us and we assign a land sale to 2 different attorneys within our group, and, you know, still same outside counsel, if there's variations in those forms, you have to kind of ask yourself why. Why are we having variations? Why is the user experience different? And so being able to use integrate templates within the request was something that was really important. And then, honestly, for me, as we rolled this out, I did not want to field calls throughout the company with if anybody had any questions or issues. So we wanted to make sure what kind of training and ongoing support that the companies offered. In the particular case of the company we chose, they have a 24/7 hotline that you can call or email, and they've been very good about working through that. And others are really good out there. And in our particular case, that is included in our cost. With some others, it's a la carte and it's a little more expensive. So that's also something you might want to evaluate. How much does the system cost? I did not have an unlimited budget. And so there were a few systems out there that we evaluated. Said, well, that's great, but I'm not AT&T or I'm not Walmart, so that would be way more than my budget, and it offers way more than what I need. So you do need a right size as you look as to what the costs are, and that's why I suggest evaluating 6 or 7 different companies just to get a feel on what's right, because every company has a different pricing model. And then lastly, but most importantly, does it work with our current IT infrastructure? You have some that are based off of Oracle that are out there, and if your system's SQL Server, then that should give you some pause. If you're working off of Oracle, then that's great. And so you got to make sure what your architecture is for your systems in your company, so you can make sure that you're not introducing a solution that would not work for that. In our particular case, we took those 7 companies and narrowed it down to 3 that we thought were the most promising. And then we gave them our templates or forms for some dummy transactions or sample transactions. And what then we asked them to do was represent to us, and we brought in to give ownership in the decision people from various parts of our company and different divisions. So we brought in some foresters, brought in some accountants, we brought in some of our land sale people, our brokers. And so we brought in different people from the different groups, and then we just said, okay, we're going to evaluate this, and you're going to see more of our actual templates or forms in this, so you can get an idea of what this would look like. And so we gave them ownership in that decision. So as a legal team, we kind of identified 7 companies, and we did ask for input from our field, and they did recommend one of the companies. And then we kind of narrowed the 7 down to 3, and then we went through those demonstrations. Based on that, we ended up selecting a company called Contract Logics. This is a list of items that this particular system does for us. So we have the ability to have to-do list, calendar events. We have a central repository for our contracts, and I'm going to walk through these. Alert or action items. We have ability to automate approval routings, which is really nice. So now we have a chance to if a land sale comes in, for instance, and we want to make sure that that person's boss is approved, we have it set up where they get an alert and they can go in and tell us yes or no they have approved the transaction. So we can do some workflow automation. And then some more ad hoc reporting. It integrates with Outlook really well for us, and also with the other applications we have within the company. One of the biggest decisions you're going to have to make with your IT people, or assuming you have IT, is whether you want to do the service, your software as a service or on-premise. So software as a service, or SaaS, is literally, it's in the cloud. So the company you're contracting with is hosting your network or the software. You're accessing it, but the data doesn't really reside on your system, and neither does the software. Or do you want to do it on premise? And there's pluses and minuses to both approaches. If you do it on premise, there's then the difficulty could be that if there's an issue with your server, if you have some power outages or things of that nature, then your service could go down. But you're going to definitely want to evaluate deployment options as to whether you want to use which one you want to use. So at this point, I'm going to kind of walk through some slides showing you examples of what our software looks like and why we like it. But I will tell you again that as you go through this, even though I'm telling you this is a company we went with, a lot of your decisions are going to be based upon your own needs, what you're trying to accomplish, etc. I mentioned to you we have a request module. I'm giving you an example of what our request module looks like for confidentiality agreement. This is actually not every page, but to the left-hand side, you have a little tree or history for each one you want to click on. It's almost like a banking form in a sense. So they can go in on company name, and if somebody's already done business with, then they will be there, and it'll automatically select them and give them the primary contact our company has with that company. If they want to enter somebody new, they click the green button out to the side, and it allows them to add either a company or a new contact. We ask them what they want for the effective date. In our forms, we always have a nickname for companies as we go through, so we ask them to go ahead and let us what the company shortcut name is, because certain companies have a preference as to how they're nicknamed. We have regions with our company, so as you go through, we kind of it starts getting a little more granular. When you want the agreement back, is this a mutual CA? Is this for properties under management, or is this potential new acquisition? And it goes through asking them more and more information, and then it goes to a page where they can upload documents. So if there's some documentation that needs to go with the confidentiality agreement, they can send that to us. Now, the nice thing about the way our system's set up, excuse me, is that if they complete all this information for us and there's not any real special request, then we can merge all this data into our standard confidentiality agreement now. So once we get through it, we review it, and everything looks in order, then we can go ahead and tell the system, let's generate, a confidentiality agreement based upon this data, and we've set up our template. Now, based upon what state it's in, that could vary, but it gives us the ability to cut down on some human error and make us a little more, make us a little more agile. I mentioned we have a central library. If you're within our company, this is not our system. It's a sample shot from the actual software company itself, but ours is very similar looking. But you have the ability for them to go in and if they want to see all the land sales that are currently pending in their state, then they can customize their search, and then there will be this series of records that will show up. And if it's all in red, that means the agreement was canceled, so maybe there's a contract for some road work, and it's already expired, so it'll show that as being expired. If they want to see insurance certificates for a particular company, so if I'm working with David Roof and our chairman here, and if he's got a company and he has insurance with us, and we're wondering is it current, then I can search by his name, search the activity insurance certificate, and it'll pull it all up. And right off the bat, I can tell if it's expired or not just by the color coding. So that's made things a lot easier. So 24/7, our people in our company can come in and check for the status of contracts and records to see what's going on. Now, there's kind of a little bit of a negotiation, if you will, of the system being set up, because on our end, we've told our people that we have nothing to hide. We're kind of going open book, because they can click on any one of these records and go in and see the information and the current status of the contract and where one of our members of the legal team are with it in the process. Is it with outside counsel? Is it with us? And where's the contract? Has it been signed? What's the closing date? But then on the contra of that, they're helping us be a lot more efficient by sending us the request electronically, because now we can manipulate it, we can report on it, and we don't have to do that manually. We have the ability to do templates. So it's been a very much of a nice marriage between operations and our department as to how that works. You can also set up some preset searches. So right now I can go in and there's certain searches that I can click on, and if I want to see all pending contracts, I can go see that. And as you go through, there's also on the right-hand side, there's a little status bar. So if it's all blue, for us, it means it's closed and it's done. If it's all red, it means it's canceled. And then if it's gray and you got a little green box, it kind of tells you where you are in the process. So for us, it lets you know that there's been a request made, but if it says request and that's it, that means no one from legal's touched it yet. But once they start reviewing it, we have our legal team, they change the status, so they know it's under review, and then they know if it's been approved, and then they know if it's out for signature. So it's a quick way for our people in the field to be able to check in just to see what the status of things are. Now, certainly, if they want to know more information, they can pick up and call us, but a lot of times they just kind of really want to just touch base and make sure that things are moving along and things are happening, so it's a little bit of a comfort level. With our system, which a lot of the systems will also have this, there's a dashboard, a configurable dashboard. So you can go on there and have contracts that are waiting for my approval, contracts that are, coming up for expiration, things. You can put any kind of number of things that you want to do for your to-do list, and it allows you to track it. And so it's just another little feature. This next slide is something that's really important for us. We have, and a number of the softwares I saw are able to do this. Some were not, but we have what we're able to manage what's called a master-sub relationship. So for us, it's not uncommon to have a big contract with some big buyer of timber, such as a Georgia Pacific or a Weyerhaeuser, and those are big players in our industry. But when you have a big contract, it might be a 10-year contract, there's a lot of things that happen under that, little tiny contracts as sales are consummated. I kind of view this as if you were to go up to Enterprise Rent-A-Car and say that we want to do a 10-year relationship with you to rent cars, at least 10 a month, over the next 10 years. Well, that may be the umbrella contract, but that's not the actual rental of the individual car. As you go get the car, then there might be little contracts that relate back to it, or you might have an amendment to a contract where something's altered. Either way, this allows us to link contracts so that if I'm searching for something and I go, all right, I've got a contract with Mr. Roof here, and I want to see, what is the history of it, I can look and go, okay, here's a contract, and here's 2 amendments to it, and then, here's a termination of the agreement, or whatever it may be. So it allows us to a little bit better way of keeping up with the history of the contract itself, where maybe, when you're using just, normal on server and folders, you can do it, but it's a little more difficult and it's not as clean. I mentioned earlier about tracking data. This is an example of some data, but you can track any number of fields, and that was something that we liked about this particular company, was that we probably have 70 different items we might track on a land sale, because we want to know what hunting leases are out there, if there's any timber sales. Do we need to reserve access? Do we need to grant access on an agreement? Is a survey required? If it is it for boundary lines? Is it for legal descriptions? That's unique to us. Whatever your business is, you'll have your own unique things that you might want to track. Earnest money deposit, closing dates. And so we basically took what was our hard copy form and then just digitized it. So they're still filling out. We're not asking for any different information from our field offices. We're just asking them to input it into this system as opposed to filling out a hard copy form. For them, they like it because a lot of these things can be automated, such as addresses, phone numbers, contacts, so they don't have to recreate that every time. So anybody in our company that has access, that we've given privileges to, can go in and open up a folder and look to see what's going on with their particular activity. Now, we don't have client-sensitive data in here. These are more transactional items, but it does allow for somebody who sent a request in, they would have the ability to access their request. For others, they would not be able to access it. It would be grayed out. I mentioned the ability to track unlimited dates and alarms. We have effective dates, and you can put expiration dates. You can set up a review date for yourself. If you say, okay, I got this contract, but I want to come back and set a date for an email to be generated to allow me to review it 4 months from now, you can set that up. Now, one of the neat things about this software that I like was we have reminder templates that we created, and we probably have 48 of them, 50 of them, because, for instance, on an insurance certificate, a lot of times we're asking for general liability, we're asking for auto, we want to see evidence of their workers' comp just to make sure they have some, and then umbrella insurance might be on there as well. And for some of those certificates of insurance we receive, all the dates are the same. But on a lot of them, about 50% of them, and we get 2,000 or 3,000 of them a year, the dates are all different. A couple of them may have the same renewal date, a couple of them may not. So we set up our insurance certificate module where they submit it, where we are able to track all 4 different dates and set up reminders for each one, so that our people in the field will receive a 30-day alert prior to expiration. So it makes them more efficient because they're not having to run around in 24 hours, because if somebody's insurance expired, we will shut them down. We won't let them operate on a property with expired insurance, and that's always tough. You'd rather not be in that situation. So here we get a 30-day alert. They got plenty of time to request it and get it in. And the nice thing is we set up these merge fields and templates. So we have a template set up for general liability insurance, and it has relevant information. And so it'll go, dear, employee A, the following general liability insurance is set to expire on X date. If we're no longer doing business with the company, there's nothing for you to do. But, if we are continuing to do business, please send us the updated record. And then on the signature line, we were able to go ahead and you can put information like, here's the contract ID number for the contract it relates to. Here's the region. You can have a quick hitter of what we do. It pulls in from these merge fields any information we want. So if we have a 80-something fields within a record, I can pull any of those I want to into a signature line to help them out for maybe a land sale. We might have a closing email letting people know that a land sale closed to our accounting department. Well, we preset the closing email up so that it automatically pulls in what was the earnest money deposit, what's the land sale price, key information they will want to know, what was the exact closing date. But instead of us having to retype that every time, we set up the template and have the system where it merges in or draws it in. And so that's been real helpful for us as a team. It's also very nice to have consistency. So the recipient in our accounting department, for instance, doesn't, we don't want to be Picasso here and every closing email be its own unique piece of art. We'd like it to be very consistent to help them know where they're looking for the information every time we send it to them. I mentioned earlier about document management. We do have, and it's really nice in this system, and a lot of them do the same thing, of where you can actually edit and handle all the documents within the system. So as we prepare a record or contract, and draft it, once we get ready to send it to either our team or to maybe our outside counsel or whoever may be involved here, we can check it out, if you will. So it gets checked out of the library, which means somebody cannot come behind you and edit the document while it's checked out to a third party. And then when they send the contract back to us, when the system brings it back in, it automatically creates a red line and lets you know everything is changed. So if somebody sends you a contract and says, well, here it is, we're fine with it, nothing's changed, you can still, it'll bring it in and automatically check it for you as a version. It also has a version history on here where I can open up and see if somebody's been viewing the contract within our system. If somebody came in and made a change behind me, it saves it as a new version and tells me who made the change and what changes they are. So it's really been nice from a document integrity standpoint, and also has the automated approval routing. So if we have 4 or 5 different people that we want to approve it, we have the ability to send it out, and they all have a little button they can click and say, I've looked at it, I've reviewed it, and that shows up in the record. So it's made us a little more efficient on being able to make sure that we're using the right version of a contract, that is getting out, getting approved, and we have good records of those approvals. And then along with that, we have the ability to have a customized paragraph library. So maybe it's something unique that we've done, and it might be, say for us, we might deal with conservation easements or a carbon project. And so if we have a standard paragraph we need to put into an agreement of sale draft that deals with something along those lines, then we have the clause library that we've set up and are able to track, and you can go click on it and say, all right, I want to bring that paragraph into this form. And again, it's helping us as a team be more consistent with how we're producing information, cutting down on errors, and making sure we're just honestly consistent. And then also, finally, you will want to look at the custom reporting engines that a software has, and everybody's different as to what they need to track. And so whatever's unique for you as a law firm or you as an in-house attorney, I would look at those systems as the type of reporting you would like. We have the ability to report on certain types of information, and there's some companies that are, and a lot of this is a balancing act. You might find one company that has amazing looking reporting, but it seems deficient in another area that's just really important to you, whether it's a request module or some of them don't have the ability for you to manage contracts within them very well, or have the, and work on templates. So you're not probably going to find one software that meets everything you want and is in the price range you want. So I would recommend you kind of have to prioritize what are the things that are most important to you, and as from that standpoint. And then lastly, the final piece of the puzzle for us was implementing electronic signatures. We've had this researched in all the states that we've dealt with, and this was told to us, but we went ahead and verified it. But really, electronic signatures under the law are viewed in the same way that a scanned email would be, or a fax. I mean, if you're basically taking a document and you're digitizing it and sending it to somebody else, under the eyes of the law, they're really the same. So for us, we wanted to implement electronic signatures where we could. Areas that we couldn't use it are, we have to, in cases where we're doing a land sale, we got to file originals. In a courthouse, they're going to want original signatures. There are certain states where you got to have witnesses to certain types of transactions. You might need a notary, although electronic signatures are now starting to go more to adding notary functions, but you might have to have a document notarized. So in places like that, there are some exceptions where it doesn't work as well. But for us, we're probably running about 9% of what we do electronically. And in this particular case, there's some stats here it talks about that, how it improves transactions. I will tell you that it's been incredible for us. We've run somewhere close to 1,900 what they call envelopes through electronic signatures. An envelope would be literally, if I sent you a package of contracts and I've got 3 or 4, say I'm sending you 4 confidentiality agreements and I send it to you in an envelope, well, that's 4 agreements, not one. So, electronic signatures works the same way. I might put 4 documents in an envelope I'm sending to you, it might be 1. So we've had 1,900 around envelopes within the system, and of that, somewhere around 45% of those were completely executed, fully executed by our side and the opposing side in under an hour. And another 22% of that were executed in what they call 1 to 6 hours, but I'll tell you it's closer to the 1 to 2 hour range. So let that sink in. Probably about 64% of what we sent out for signature fully executed in under an hour. And the nice thing about the way this system works, we like DocuSign, but there are other really good ones out there. Certify is another one. There's 2 or 3 others that are really good. But the thing that we like about it is if I'm sending something, again, to Mr. Roof, I'll keep picking on him here, and I'm sending him a contract, and I have to sign it and he has to sign it. Maybe it's an engagement letter with his law firm, and I'm sending that to him as an in-house attorney to an outside attorney, and he's going to sign it and I'm going to sign it. Well, once we both sign it, we will both receive an email of it being fully executed. And if David signs it after hours, I can copy whoever I want that needs to receive a copy of it. Maybe it's my accounting department. Maybe it's one of the paralegals assigned to the matter. Whoever, you can put them on that chain, and once that document's fully executed, it automatically distributes. So it's amazing how many times after hours, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock, transactions get, documents get fully executed and everybody receives a copy. So our customers and vendors have been very happy about it. In the forestry world, we're not technically dealing with the most techie people in the world, but we have found that it's been a tremendous savings for them, and they have gravitated to it at a high rate because I view it like a triangle. If you could visualize with me, there's a triangle with the top point pointing up, and there's 2 corners in the bottom. If we have somebody that's at their house and they're on the left bottom corner of the triangle, and we send them a document by fax to their office, well, they got to drive to the bottom right part of the triangle, and then their job site's up at the top. So they might have downtime of a couple hours or more even, having to leave their house, go to their office, get something signed, return it to us, and go to the top. But now, instead of us faxing a contract to them or even emailing it to them, because a lot of people still don't want to print them off at home, sign them, and scan them back to you, they can do this on an app. They receive the contract, they can review it, they can sign it, and so they never go to that right part of the triangle. They're at their house, and they get to go straight to their job site, and everything's signed up like we need to have it signed up. So our customers have been very appreciative of it, and it's made things a lot more efficient. It's also a great way to make sure that documents are not hanging out there unsigned. The previous way we did it was we have about 100 feet of countertop, and we have all these expandables out with documents that are supposed to be signed, all these little slots. They get signed, and they get scanned and put into a record. Well, now, as you can see on this little example I'm showing you here, if there's something that's waiting signatures, it lets you know that I got 4 agreements still waiting to be signed, and I can pull it up and see who they are and drop them an email or a text or call them and let them know, hey, this is still outstanding. So it's been a great way to monitor our records and make sure that things are getting handled, getting signed. The other real nice benefit is with electronic signatures, you can have customized reporting engines. This is not our records. This was an example that I used that DocuSign has out there on their site, but this is what our system looks like in the sense that you get a document status, how many were sent, how many have been completed, your completion rate, that document velocity I was mentioning earlier about how many documents signed under an hour is the bottom left-hand chart. It kind of shows you how records are going. And then there's about 26 other reports it can run. So you can actually have these things emailed to you, or you can go and look at them. I can tell you right now that we have about 6 or 7 people that sign within our company, and I can tell you how many documents have been sent to them in the last week, 1 month, 1 year since we started, and I can tell you their average turnaround time. You know, some people, they get an alert on their phone and they'll turn it around in under 30 minutes. Some people it takes them 7 hours because they may be out in the field more. So you can track a lot of interesting data as you implement something like electronic signatures.